If you were to stand exactly where you are right now, but rewind the clock 20,000 years, the silence would not be what captures your attention first. It would be the vibration. Before you even saw them, you would feel them. A heavy, rhythmic resonance deep within the frozen soil, shaking the snow from the pine branches. This is not a winter storm. It is the approach of giants. You are entering a lost world where the days are short, the ice is a mile thick, and humanity is just a tiny, shivering spectator in the kingdom of monsters. Before we surrender to the cold and the snow, please take a brief moment to support the channel. If you want to continue exploring these forgotten eras with us, please like this video and subscribe. It truly helps us keep these stories alive. I am also curious, where in the world are you drifting off from tonight, and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments. Now let's prepare for the journey back. Get comfortable, unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders and close your eyes. Take a deep, slow breath in through your nose, filling your chest with air, and let it out in a long, slow sigh. Let the present fade away. The world changes around you. The temperature drops rapidly, settling into a dry, crisp freeze that instantly stiffens the hairs on your arms. You are standing on the edge of the Mammoth Steppe. It is the largest biome the Earth has ever known, a vast, sweeping grassland that circles the top of the globe, binding continents together in a collar of ice and gold. The sky above is a piercing, electric blue, empty of clouds but full of light. The sun hangs low on the horizon, a pale coin that casts long, stretching shadows across the snow. Even though it is midday, the light has a twilight quality to it, soft and diffused, turning the undulating drifts of snow into a landscape of sparkling diamonds and deep violet valleys. The air here is cleaner than anything you have ever breathed. It tastes of ancient ice, of crushed granite, and the faint, sweet scent of dry sage buried beneath the frost. It is so quiet that the sound of your own breath seems loud, a rhythmic cloud of steam puffing out into the stillness. But then, the deep resonance returns. It is a slow, deliberate cadence, muffled by the snow, but heavy enough to resonate in your chest. Emerging from the swirling mist of the valley floor, a shape materializes. It is massive, a dark mountain moving against the white backdrop. As it draws closer, the details resolve, and you realize you are looking at the monarch of the Ice Age, a woolly mammoth. He is colossal, a bull in the prime of his life, standing over 11 feet tall at the shoulder. He moves with a slow, rolling gait, placing each massive foot down with surprising gentleness. His coat is a thick, shaggy tapestry of dark chocolate and russet fur, hanging in long, matted curtains that sway with every step. The hair is long enough to drag on the snow. He is not alone. Behind him, the mist breaks further to reveal the herd. They move as a single, fluid entity, a family bound by blood and survival. There are 12 of them, ranging from the towering matriarch who leads from the front to the smaller, darker calves tucked safely in the middle of the formation. They are calm. There is no urgency in their movement, no panic. They are built for this cold. They are the masters of it. You can see their small ears tucked tight against their heads to preserve warmth, and their trunks, thick and muscular, resting gently on their curved tusks or swinging idly as they walk. The matriarch stops. She is the oldest, her tusks crossed and worn from decades of clearing snow. She lowers her head, the great curved ivory sweeping sideways in a practiced motion. With a sound akin to rasping sandpaper, she clears a patch of snow, revealing the dry, preserved grasses beneath. The steppe is not dead, it is merely sleeping. Under the white blanket lies a rich larder of sedges, mosses, and herbs, freeze-dried by the wind. The herd gathers around her. The sound of their eating is hypnotic. It is a rhythmic tearing and grinding, a slow, steady motion that fills the air. The steam from their trunks rises in columns, mingling with the mist. You can smell the musk of their fur, a heavy, earthy scent like wet wool, and a young calf, hardly taller than a human, nudges its mother's flank. The mother responds with a low, rumbling purr. It is a sound too deep for human ears to fully hear, but you can feel it, a vibrating warmth that travels through the air, a secret language of comfort and connection. She reaches out with her trunk, dusting the snow from the calf's back with a touch as delicate as a human finger. While they graze, your gaze drifts past them to the horizon. The landscape is not flat, but rolling, dotted with islands of scrubby trees. These are the hardy survivors, dwarf birch and twisted spruce, their branches gnarled and bent by the relentless winds of the epic. They stand like frozen sentinels, watching the procession of giants. Near a cluster of rocks, the snow is disturbed. The tracks there are different. They are not the round, pillar-like depressions of the mammoths. These are long, with distinct claw marks digging deep into the ice. They belong to a creature that walks on the sides of its feet, a creature of immense weight and strange proportions. This is the sign of the megatherium, the giant ground sloth. He is somewhere nearby, perhaps sleeping in the shelter of the ridge. He is a slow-moving fortress, covered in coarse hair, standing nearly as tall as the mammoths when he rears up. He is a solitary wanderer, a ghost of the plains who strips the bark from the trees with claws the size of scythes. The mystery of his presence hangs in the air, a reminder that this world is full of titans. The mammoths seem unbothered. Their sheer size is their shield. They finish their meal, the matriarch lifting her head to sniff the wind. She smells the changing weather before the clouds even appear. With a soft trumpet, a sound that echoes mournfully off the distant glaciers, she signals the move. The herd falls into line again. They are following a map written in their genetic memory, a path their ancestors walked for thousands of years. They are heading toward the shelter of the valley walls as the sun begins its slow descent. As they walk, they pass a frozen river. The water is locked tight, a ribbon of opaque turquoise winding through the white. The wind picks up, whistling through the long guard hairs of the mammoths, creating a soft, rushing white noise that layers over the crunch of their footsteps. You float along with them, an invisible observer. The rhythm of their walking becomes a lullaby. One step, then another, a heavy, swaying motion. It is a hypnotic cycle. The world to your left, a shelf of ice hangs over a cliff edge, dripping long, jagged icicles that catch the fading sunlight. They glow like amber and fire in the late afternoon light. Beneath the cliff, the shadows are lengthening, stretching out like dark fingers across the snow. The temperature is dropping further, knitting the world together in a tight embrace of frost. The herd approaches a narrow pass between two rising hills. The snow here is deeper, drifted high against the black rock. The matriarch slows down. She tests the depth with her trunk, her breath billowing around her face. She is careful. She knows that hidden beneath the snow are crevices, fractures in the earth caused by the expanding ice. She takes a step, sinking up to her knees but finding solid ground. She pushes forward, her massive shoulders parting the drift like a ship breaking through a frozen sea. The others follow in her wake, stepping precisely into the deep holes she leaves behind, conserving their energy. As the last calf struggles through the drift, helped by a gentle shove from its mother, the landscape opens up again. We are entering a new section of the steppe, a place where the wind has scoured the ground clean, exposing the dark, frozen earth and the scatter of stones that have laid untouched for eons. Here, the silence is different. It is heavier. In the distance, a sound breaks the monotony, a sharp, high-pitched call followed by another. It is the cry of a fox, perhaps, or something older. The mammoth's ears flick, but they do not stop. They continue their march, darker shapes against the dimming light, walking toward a destiny that is written in the stars above. The sun finally touches the horizon, igniting the snow in a blaze of pink and orange. It is a cold fire, beautiful but without heat. The light reflects off the tusks of the mammoths, turning them into gleaming crescents of gold. As the light fades, the first stars begin to prick the violet sky, sharp and incredibly bright in the thin atmosphere. Under this canopy of emerging stars, the matriarch pauses again. She has found the spot. It is a depression in the land, shielded from the biting wind by a wall of rock. She begins to clear the snow again, not for food this time, but for rest. She tramples the ground, packing it down, creating a bed of ice and earth. One by one, the great beasts slow their movements. The calves lean against the mothers. The heat radiating from their bodies creates a localized zone of warmth, a small island of life in the vast, freezing ocean of the steppe. They do not lie down yet. They stand huddled together, swaying slightly, their eyes closing as the twilight deepens into the true dark of the prehistoric night. The darkness does not fall suddenly. It seeps into the valley like ink into water. The violet hue of the horizon deepens, turning into a rich, velvety indigo, and finally into the absolute crushing black of a prehistoric midnight. The air, already cold, tightens its grip. Moisture in the air instantly crystallizes, forming tiny, floating diamonds of ice that glitter in the starlight. Above the huddled herd, the sky transforms into a spectacle of infinite depth. Without the light pollution of the modern world, the stars are not just pinpricks, they are blazing fires, thick clusters of light that form a river of milk stretching from one horizon to the other. You can see the depth of the universe here, a ceiling of ancient constellations that look down upon this frozen epoch with a cold, unblinking stare. Then the light begins. It starts as a faint greenish glow to the north, pulsing softly like a slow heartbeat. Slowly, it unfurls. Great ribbons of emerald and pale violet light begin to dance across the heavens. The aurora borealis. It moves with a silent, ghostly elegance, twisting and folding over itself, painting the snow beneath in surreal, shifting shades of neon. The light is bright enough to cast shadows, strange and elongated, that rotate around the sleeping mammoths. The herd pays no mind to the display above. They are an island of warmth in a sea of frost. The calves, exhausted from the day's march, have finally succumbed to sleep. They lean heavily against the legs of their mothers, their long, dark eyelashes frosted with ice. The adults form a protective ring around them, facing outward. They do not sleep deeply, not all at once. They drift into a state of drowsy awareness, a half-slumber, where their ears remain tuned to the frequency of the wind. If you listen closely, moving past the whistle of the breeze, you can hear the sound of their rest. It is a deep, resonant rumbling from their stomachs, a digestion process that generates the heat necessary to keep them alive. It sounds like distant thunder rolling through a canyon, a comforting, continuous drone. Every now and then, one of the great beasts shifts its weight. The snow crunches loudly under a massive foot, compressing into ice. A trunk curls up, blowing a puff of warm air onto a cold shoulder, melting the frost for just a moment before it reforms. The matriarch is the only one truly awake. Her eyes are small, dark pools reflecting the dancing lights of the aurora. She stands like a statue carved from rock and hair. She's listening. She knows that the night belongs to a different caste of creatures, hunters who prefer the cloak of shadows. Beyond the circle of safety, the steppe is alive with secret movements. Downwind, near the edge of the frozen river, a shadow detaches itself from the darkness of a spruce thicket. It moves with a fluid, liquid grace, low to the ground. This is a creature of power and stealth. As it steps into a patch of aurora light, The pale green glow reveals the muscular, sloping shoulders and the short, bobbed tail. It is a Similodon, the saber-toothed cat. He is heavier and more robust than the lions or tigers of the future. He is built like a wrestler, designed for grappling with megafauna. But tonight, he is not hunting the mammoths. He pauses, lifting a massive paw to lick the snow from his fur. His most striking feature gleams in the starlight. 2 7-inch canines that protrude from his upper jaw, curving backward like serrated knives. He looks toward the herd. His golden eyes catch the reflection of the mammoths, measuring them. He sees the wall of tusks, the sheer mass of the adults. He knows that this fortress is impenetrable tonight. With a low, rasping exhale, not quite a growl, but a vibration in his throat, he turns away. He moves silently, his wide, padded paws spreading his weight so he makes no sound on the crust of the snow. He disappears back into the tree line, a ghost fading into the mist, searching for easier, solitary prey, like a wandering horse or a bison calf. The danger passes, though the mammoths never truly acknowledged it. The matriarch blinks slowly. The tension in her shoulders relaxes by a fraction of an inch. The night wears on, stretching into the deep, quiet hours. The temperature drops to its lowest point, a cold so severe that sap freezes inside the trees, causing the wood to crack with loud, sharp reports that echo like gunshots across the valley. Crack. The sound travels for miles in the thin air. The mammoths do not flinch. They are accustomed to the exploding trees. It is just the music of the winter. Further away, the landscape shifts from the open plains to the jagged chaos of the glacier's edge. Here, the ice sheet, a mile high, presses against the mountains. Under the light of the moon, which has now risen to join the aurora, deep within the blue ice, water still flows. Tiny channels of meltwater trickle through the heart of the glacier, singing a faint, musical, dripping song that no one hears. It is the sound of time passing, drop by drop. The glacier is not static. It is a slow-moving river of solids, grinding the rock beneath it into flour, reshaping the continents inch by inch while the world sleeps. Back in the depression where the herd rests, the wind begins to die down. The silence returns, heavier than before. It is a silence that feels thick, wrapping around the world like a heavy wool blanket. The only movement is the slow rise and fall of the mammoth's rib cages. The matriarch finally allows herself to rest. She does not lie down. It is too difficult for her to stand back up quickly, but she locks her legs into place, a biological mechanism that allows her to sleep while standing without using muscular energy. Her trunk droops, the tip resting gently on the snow, curling slightly like a resting snake. Her breathing slows. In this state of suspension, does she dream? Perhaps she dreams of the summers, the brief, explosive summers of the Pleistocene, when the sun never sets and the snow melts to reveal vast carpets of wildflowers, poppies, buttercups, and bluebells, turning the gray steppe into a riot of color. She remembers the taste of fresh willow leaves, the cool sensation of mud baths to soothe the biting flies, and the feeling of the sun warming her back without the bite of the wind. These memories are stored deep within her, a map of survival that she passes down to the calves from her bidens. A small, snowy owl, white as the drift it perches on, glides silently over the sleeping herd. Its wings make absolutely no sound, the feathers fringed to cut the air without turbulence. It lands on the curved tusk of the matriarch, indifferent to the massive beast. The owl swivels its head, scanning the snow for the movement of a lemming. For a moment, two icons of the Ice Age, the massive mammoth and the delicate owl, are connected, touching in the stillness of the night. The owl takes flight again, diving into the shadows. The matriarch twitches her trunk, but does not wake. The constellation of the Great Bear rotates slowly around the pole star. The passage of time is marked not by clocks, but by the movement of the heavens. The frost begins to grow thicker on the coats of the animals, turning them silver in the moonlight. They look like ancient hills, part of the landscape itself. As the hours drift by, the aurora begins to fade, retreating back to the northern horizon. The intense violet of the sky softens, washing out into a deep, cold gray. The moon dips low, casting long, stretching shadows that seem to reach out. The stillness is absolute. There is no rustle of grass, no flow of water, no hum of insects. There is only the cold, the ice, and the rhythmic breathing of the herd, waiting for the return of the pale sun. The world is held in a suspended breath, a peaceful, frozen pause between the yesterday of history and the tomorrow of the thaw. The transition from night to day in the Ice Age is not a sudden burst of glory, but a slow, subtle shifting of the spectrum. The deep charcoal of the sky begins to dilute, turning into a pale, steely gray. This is the blue hour, a time of profound stillness before the world fully wakes. The air is at its coldest point now, a brittle, dry freeze that seems to suspend time itself. On the backs of the sleeping mammoths, the frost has built up into a thick, crystalline armor. They look less like animals and more like boulders covered in lichen and snow, indistinguishable from the rocky outcrop sheltering them. The first sign of movement comes from the matriarch. She shifts her weight, the snow crunching loudly beneath her feet. She takes a deep breath, and a massive plume of steam erupts from her trunk, hanging in the still air like a white cloud. She blinks, her dark eyes clearing as she surveys the valley. The world has not changed in the night. It is still white, still silent, still her. She lets out a low, guttural rumble. It is a wake-up call, gentle but commanding. Slowly, the mound of fur and muscle begins to stir. One by one, the other adults shift and stretch. The awakening of the herd is a spectacle of power. As they move, the layer of frost on their coats shatters. With a series of heavy flapping sounds, they shake themselves. It is a violent shudder that starts at the head and ripples down to the tail, sending clouds of snow and ice crystals flying into the air. The crystals catch the first gray light of dawn, creating a momentary, sparkling fog around the animals. The calves, buried deep in the warmth of the huddle, are the last to emerge. They stumble out, blinking against the brightness of the snow, looking small and fragile against the towering legs of their parents. The herd does not move out immediately. The morning ritual is slow. They use their trunks to groom one another, removing the heavier chunks of ice from their fur. It is a social time, a time to reinforce the bonds that keep them alive. The touch of a trunk is their language, a stroke behind the ear, a gentle tug on a tusk, a reassuring pat on the shoulder. As they prepare for the day, the sun finally breaches the horizon. In this frozen atmosphere, the sunrise is accompanied by a phenomenon known as parhelia, or sundogs. Because the air is filled with millions of hexagonal ice crystals, the light refracts, creating the illusion of three suns in the sky. The true sun in the center, flanked by two phantom suns on either side, all connected by a halo of rainbow light. It is a celestial crown. Under this triple sun, the herd begins to move. They leave the shelter of the rocks and head out onto the open plain. The snow here is windswept and hard-packed, making for easier walking. They fall into their single-file rhythm, a slow, swaying march that eats up the miles without effort. As they crest a low rise, the matriarch pauses. Ahead, in a shallow dip in the land, another giant blocks the path. It is a colodonta, the woolly rhinoceros. He is a tank of a creature, solitary and grumpy. He stands 5 feet tall at the shoulder, but is built with an incredible density. His body is covered in thick reddish-brown hair, and he possesses 2 horns. The front horn is massive, a flat, sweeping blade of keratin nearly 3 feet long, polished smooth from years of sweeping snow aside to find grass. The rhino does not look up immediately. He is busy grazing, his head sweeping back and forth like a pendulum. He is a creature of habit, and he does not like to be disturbed. The mammoths stop. There is no aggression here, only a mutual recognition of size. The rhino is one of the few animals on the steppe that will not move for a mammoth. The matriarch assesses him. She could push him aside, she outweighs him significantly, but energy is precious. Conflict is a waste. She makes a decision. She adjusts her course slightly to the left, leading the herd in a wide arc around the solitary grazer. The rhino lifts his head as they pass. His eyesight is poor, but his hearing and smell are acute. He twists his ears towards the sound of their footsteps, his nostrils flaring to take in their scent. He lets out a sharp, huffing snort, a warning just in case. But the mammoths are already moving past, their great forms casting shadows over him. He returns to his grass, the momentary interruption forgotten. The herd continues down the slope toward the valley floor. The vegetation here changes. The dry grasses of the higher steppe give way to shrubby willows and dwarf birch trees that hug the ground. The smell of the air changes too. It becomes damper, heavier. They are approaching the braided river system that drains the glacier meltwater. Although the river is frozen solid on the surface, the matriarch knows that water lies beneath. Thirst is a constant companion in this frozen desert. Eating snow lowers their body temperature too much. They need liquid water to maintain their massive internal furnaces. They reach a spot where the wind has kept the snow clear of the ice. The ice is wide here, a flat expanse of white stretching a 1/4 mile across. The ice is thick, clouded with bubbles and cracks, intricate pattern. The matriarch steps onto the ice. Her feet, large and round, spread her weight effectively, but the ice still groans under the 6 tons of pressure. It is a deep, eerie sound, like a cello string being bowed too hard. She walks with a different gait now, shuffling, keeping her feet flat to avoid slipping. She finds a spot near the center of the channel, where the current beneath is strong enough to keep the ice thinner. She stops and tests the surface with her trunk. Then she begins the work. She lifts her front foot and brings it down hard. Crack! She does it again, and again. The ice fractures, spiderwebbing out from the impact point. She uses her tusks now, hooking them under the fractured plates and levering them up. Slabs of ice slide away, revealing the dark, rushing water beneath. Steam instantly rises from the opening, contrasting with the freezing air. The herd gathers around the hole. They take turns. The adults drink first, dipping their trunks into the freezing water and sucking it up, then tilting their heads back to let it flow down their throats. The sound of their drinking is loud, a rhythmic sloshing and swallowing. The water is unimaginably cold, but it is life. The calves wait impatiently, nudging their mother's legs. When it is their turn, they are less graceful, splashing the water and playing for a moment before drinking. One calf slips on the slick ice, his legs splaying out, but he scrambles back up quickly, shaking his trunk in annoyance. While they drink, the sun climbs higher. The phantom suns fade, leaving a single bright orb that brings no heat, only light. The landscape sparkles with an intensity that is almost blinding. Every drift, every icicle, every blade of grass encased in frost acts as a prism. The world is a palace of diamonds. Refreshed, the herd moves off the ice and onto the opposite bank. They are heading for the shelter of a distant tree line, a place the matriarch remembers from her own childhood. It is a place where the mineral salts stain the earth, a necessary nutrient for their growth. But the journey is never just a straight line. As they climb the bank, the wind shifts. It begins to pick up, blowing from the north, carrying with it a fine powder of snow. The sky, previously so blue, begins to whiten at the edges. The matriarch swings her trunk up, sniffing. The scent of ozone and deep snow is coming. The weather in the ice. She rumbles low and deep, a vibration that tells the herd to close ranks. The spacing between them shrinks. The calves are ushered into the very center, shielded by a wall of fur and tusks. They lower their heads against the rising wind, their eyes narrowing. They do not stop. To stop in a storm is to freeze. They simply lean into the wind and keep walking, a caravan of endurance moving through the white void. The horizon dissolves. There is no longer a line where the white earth meets the pale sky. There is only a singular enveloping wash of gray. The wind does not howl with aggression. Rather, it hums a low, constant note, a vibration that travels through the fur and skin, straight into the bone. The snow begins to fall in earnest, not in drifting flakes, but in hard, tiny pellets that hiss as they strike the frozen ground, adding a layer of texture to the white noise of the plains. The matriarch slows the pace. Visibility has dropped to less than a trunk's length. In this whiteout, vision is useless. She navigates now entirely by instinct and the magnetic pull of the earth itself, a compass buried deep within her mind. She feels the subtle incline of the land, the texture of the snow underfoot, and the shift in air pressure that signals the shelter of the valley walls. The herd tightens its formation until they are practically stepping on one another's heels. To an observer, they would appear as a single monumental organism pushing against the elements. The calves are completely hidden now, sandwiched between the towering flanks of the adults. Inside this moving fortress, the air is still and warm, scented with the grassy breath of the mothers. It is a pocket of tropical heat moving through a polar world.
As the storm intensifies, the matriarch decides it is time to halt. They have reached the lee side of a granite outcrop, a jagged spine of rock that breaks the force of the wind. She stops, planting her feet like pillars. The others crowd in, interlocking their tusks gently, weaving their trunks together. They enter a state of torpor, a standing hibernation. They become part of the storm. The snow clings to their shaggy coats, building up layer upon layer until the dark brown of their fur is completely hidden. They look like snow-covered hills, motionless and silent. The wind rushes over them, smoothing their shapes, erasing their definition. Inside the huddle, time seems to stop. The roar of the wind outside acts as a heavy blanket, muffling the world, creating a cocoon of isolation. The heartbeat of the herd slows down. There is a profound sense of peace in this surrender to the elements. They do not fight the winter. They endure it with a patience that has been refined over 1,000,000 years. They wait, suspended in the white darkness, while the storm reshapes the world around them. Minutes stretch into hours. The light shifts imperceptibly from the gray of day to the deeper gray of twilight, and then back again as the storm passes. The wind begins to lose its teeth. The hissing of the snow pellets softens into the gentle drift of large, fluffy flakes, the kind that dampen sound and make the world feel soft and padded. The matriarch shakes her head. The movement cracks the shell of ice that has formed over her eyes. She blinks, shaking off the white mask. Above, the clouds are tearing apart, revealing glimpses of that piercing, crystalline blue sky. The sun breaks through, turning the fresh, untouched snow into a blinding expanse of white glitter. The world has been reset. All tracks, all scars on the land have been wiped clean. It is a pristine, blank canvas. She rumbles, a sound that vibrates through the chests of the sleeping herd. The snow-covered hills stir. Great sheets of snow slide off their backs as they move, revealing the dark fur beneath. They are eager to move now. The storm has delayed them, and the hunger returns. They leave the shelter of the rocks, wading through drifts that are now chest deep. The matriarch uses her head and tusks as a snowplow, sweeping the path clear. They are close to their destination. The scent of it is strong in the crisp, clean air, a smell of damp earth, minerals, and salt. They descend into a sunken bowl in the landscape. Here, the ground is strange. It is not covered in grass, but is raw, exposed earth, stained in shades of ochre, rust, and clay. This is the mineral lick, a holy site for the creatures of the steppe. The earth here is rich in calcium, sodium, and magnesium, elements that the giants need to grow their massive bones and...
They are not the first to arrive. Standing on the far side of the clay bowl is another gathering of titans. It is a herd of steppe bison, the ancestors of modern bison, but far larger, with horns that span over 6 feet from tip to tip. Their coats are thick and dark, their breath pluming in the air as they lick the frozen earth. The arrival of the mammoths causes a ripple of movement among the bison. Heads lift, wet noses twitching. A massive bull bison, his shoulders a mountain of muscle, snorts and paws the ground, kicking up a spray of snow. But there is no violence. The law of the steppe is one of coexistence. There is enough salt for everyone. The mammoths descend slowly into the bowl. They ignore the bison, moving to a section of the bank where the clay is softest. They use their tusks to gouge out chunks of the frozen earth. Then they use their trunks to crumble the dirt and place it into their mouths. It is a slow, deliberate feast. The grit grinds against their molars, the minerals dissolving on their tongues. For a long time, the only sounds in the valley are the scraping of tusks against earth and the heavy, contented breathing of 24 giants. It is a scene of peaceful domesticity. A mammoth calf, feeling bold, wanders a few steps toward the bison herd. The bull bison watches him with a large dark eye, chewing his cud slowly. The calf, realizing the immense size of the stranger, thinks better of it and scampers back to the safety of his mother's legs, wrapping his trunk around her tail for comfort. The sun begins to warm the air slightly. From the edge of the tree line above the bowl, a pair of eyes watches the gathering. It is a short-faced bear, a scavenger, and a brute of the north. He is immense, taller than a man even on all fours, with a short, powerful snout designed to crush bone. But even he will not challenge this gathering. There is too much power in the valley below. He watches for a moment, sniffing the air for any sign of weakness, any injured animal. Finding none, he turns and lumbers away into the thicket, his heavy paws leaving deep imprints that shadow the retreating storm. The matriarch finishes her intake of minerals. She feels the heaviness of the meal in her stomach. The day is waning again. The short photo period of the Ice Age means the sun is already dipping toward the western horizon. The sky is turning a soft, bruised purple. It is time to find the resting place for the night. But tonight, the air feels different. The storm has brought a change. The wind has shifted to the south, carrying a faint, almost imperceptible warmth. It is a false spring, a common fluctuation in these volatile climates, but it promises a milder night. She leads them out of the mineral bowl, climbing the opposite ridge. As they reach the top, the view opens up. Stretching out before them is a vast frozen lake, its surface swept clean by the wind until it shines like a mirror of polished black obsidian. They walk along the ridge, their silhouettes stark against the darkening sky. They are moving toward a patch of ancient larch trees, their needles long fallen, leaving skeletal branches that scratch at the stars. The trees offer better shelter than the open plain. As they walk, the matriarch begins to hum. It is not a vocal sound, but a low-frequency vibration in her throat, a song of location and reassurance. The other females pick it up, adding their own notes. It becomes a chorus of the herd, a song of survival sung into the teeth of the coming night. They are heavy, they are tired, and they are together.
The rhythm of their walking matches the rhythm of the earth, a slow, steady beat that continues on and on and on. The transition from the exposed ridge to the shelter of the larch trees is gradual. The wind, which had been a constant companion on the open ridge, begins to lose its voice, tangled in the branches of the ancient wood. The trees here are not the lush green pines of the south. They are hardy survivors of the taiga. Having shed their needles for the winter, they stand like silver skeletons against the indigo sky, their gnarled limbs twisting into intricate patterns that catch the starlight. As the herd crosses the threshold into the tree line, the sound of their movement changes. On the windswept ridge, the snow was hard as concrete, ringing under their weight. Here, on the forest floor, the snow is soft, deep, and powdery. It muffles their steps, absorbing the impact, so that the giants move with the silence of falling feathers. The air inside the grove is still and heavy. It holds a different scent, a complex perfume of frozen resin, old wood, and the faint mushroom-like smell of the earth sleeping beneath the frost. It is a scent that triggers a memory of safety in the matriarch's mind. This grove has stood here for centuries, a way station for her kind.
She leads them to a clearing near the center of the stand, a place where the canopy opens up just enough to let the moonlight filter through in shafts of pale blue. The light illuminates the scene with a theatrical softness, highlighting the curve of a tusk here, the slope of a shoulder there. There is a sense of reverence in the way the mammoths move among the trees. They are careful not to snap the lower branches. The bark of the larches is thick and deeply fissured, offering a texture that the animals seem to enjoy. One of the younger bulls pauses to rub his flank against a rough trunk, swaying slowly back and forth. The tree shudders under his weight, dropping a dusting of snow onto his back, but it holds firm. In the quiet of the woods, the small details of the Ice Age become visible. At the base of a large tree where the roots create a small hollow, a snowshoe hare sits motionless. It is completely white, save for the tips of its ears, which are dipped in black ink. It watches the passing mountain of fur with large, unblinking eyes, trusting in its camouflage. The mammoths pass within inches of it, but their awareness is tuned to larger things, and the hare remains a statue of the snow. Further into the clearing, the ground rises slightly. Here, the wind has scoured away some of the snow, revealing the raw geology of the land. Jutted out of the frozen earth is a curved shape that mirrors the tusks of the living. It is a rib bone, massive and fossilized, turned to stone by the passage of eons. It belongs to a creature that walked this land before the ice came, perhaps a giant bison or an ancestor of the mammoth. The matriarch stops by the bone. She reaches out with her trunk, the sensitive tip hovering just above the stone. She does not touch it, but she inhales the scent of the mineralized calcium. It is a silent communion between the living and the dead, a recognition that they are walking on layers of history. The steppe is a graveyard of giants, but it is also a cradle. The bones of the past nourish the soil that feeds the grass, which in turn feeds the herd. It is an unbroken circle. The calves, energized by the protection of the trees, engage in a bout of low-energy play. Two of them lock trunks, a gentle wrestling match that looks more like a slow dance. They push against each other, their small tusks clicking softly. It is practice for the battles they will fight years from now, but for now, it is innocent. Their mothers watch from a few feet away, their eyes half closed, chewing on the tough, bitter bark of a fallen willow branch. The night deepens, the temperature plummets, but the trees trap the radiant heat of the earth, creating a microclimate that is noticeably warmer than the open plain. The herd begins to settle. Unlike the previous night on the open steppe where they huddled in a tight defensive ball, here they spread out slightly. They form a loose circle facing outward, but with enough room to lie down if they choose.
The matriarch finds a patch of soft pine needles buried under the snow. She bends her front knees, then her back, lowering her 6 tons of weight to the ground with a heavy, controlled sigh. It is rare for a fully grown mammoth to lie down. It leaves them vulnerable. But here in the sanctuary of the larches, she feels secure. She tucks her legs beneath her, resting.
From this lower vantage point, the forest looks different. The trees seem to tower endlessly upward, their branches forming a net that catches the stars. The moon has risen fully now, a perfect white sphere that looks closer and larger than it ever does in the modern era. Its light reflects off the icy crust of the snow, making the forest floor glow with a bioluminescent quality. A sound breaks the stillness, not a threat, but a song. Far in the distance, miles away across the frozen lake they passed earlier, a pack of wolves begins to howl. It is a haunting, melodic sound, rising and falling in pitch. It speaks of the hunger of the night, of the chase, of the wildness of the world. The matriarch's ear swivels toward the sound, but she does not rise. The wolves are no threat to a healthy herd, and they are far away. The howl is simply part of the night's choir. As the howl fades, silence rushes back in to fill the void. It is a heavy, comfortable silence. The only sound nearby is the rhythmic chewing of a neighbor and the soft whoosh of breath from the sleeping calves. The matriarch closes her eyes. Her breathing slows, syncing with the slow pulse of the winter night. In the darkness behind her eyelids, her other senses take over. She can feel the vibration of the earth, the subtle shifting of the permafrost deep below. She can smell the coming dawn, still hours away, sensing the slight shift in humidity that precedes the sun. She drifts into a light sleep, a state of suspended animation where the line between the animal and the landscape blurs. She is simply another hill in the forest, another rock, another tree. Around her, the rest of the herd follows suit. The forest is filled with the dark, hulking shapes of the sleeping giants. Frost begins to form on their long, shaggy outer hairs, dusting them with silver. They look like ancient mounds of earth, timeless and immovable. Above them, the sky continues its slow rotation. The great bear dips lower. A shooting star slashes across the darkness, a brief, silent streak of fire that burns up in the upper atmosphere. No one sees it. The world below is asleep, wrapped in the white embrace of the Ice Age. But even in sleep, the herd is moving. Not in space, but in time. They are drifting through the long night of the Pleistocene, drifting toward a future that is slowly, inevitably warming. But for now, the ice holds. For now, the cold is their kingdom, and they are its peaceful, sleeping rulers. The night stretches on, quiet and deep, holding the valley in a suspension of perfect, frozen peace. The deepest part of the night passes not with a change in sound, but with a change in the quality of the air. As the constellation of the Great Bear rotates slowly toward the horizon, the temperature bottoms out. It is the kind of absolute cold that turns the atmosphere into a solid thing, a presence that presses against the skin. In the larch grove, the herd remains motionless. They have become statues of ice and fur. The frost has worked its way over every inch of them, creating delicate, fern-like patterns on the curved ivory of their tusks and turning their long eyelashes into fans of white lace. They breathe in a shallow, synchronized rhythm, barely disturbing the stillness.
Slowly, imperceptibly, the darkness begins to thin. The velvet black of the sky dissolves into a deep, bruised violet, then lightens to a cold steel gray. This is the false dawn, a ghostly illumination that precedes the sun. It reveals the world in monochrome, stripping away color to leave only texture, the roughness of the bark, the smoothness of the snow, the jagged outline of the distant peaks. The matriarch is the first to break the spell. Her awakening is a slow process of re-engaging with the world. First, her ears flick, dislodging a dusting of snow. Then, her trunk uncoils from where it was tucked against her chest. She inhales deeply, testing the morning air. It smells of ozone and ice fog, a suspension of tiny ice crystals that hang in the air like a glittering mist. She shifts her weight, rocking back and forth to gain momentum before pushing herself upright. The effort is immense. Her joints pop and creak, sounds that are muffled immediately by the deep snow. She stands to her full height, a mountain rising from the earth. A cloud of steam billows from her mouth, obscuring her face for a moment before drifting up into the branches. She rumbles a greeting to the herd. It is a soft, low sound, almost a purr. One by one, the dark shapes around her stir. There is a series of heavy sighs, the crunch of snow being compacted, and the rustle of stiff fur rubbing against tree trunks. The calves wake up shivering, pressing immediately against the warmth of their mother's legs to soak up the residual heat. There is no breakfast to be found here in the grove. The bark has been stripped, and the ground is barren. The matriarch knows they must move. She turns her head toward the open gap in the trees, facing north. The instinct to migrate is a pull as strong as gravity. They are moving toward the edge of the ice sheet, where the katabatic winds scour the land clear of snow, exposing the dried grass. They file out of the trees, leaving the sanctuary behind. As they step back out onto the open plain, they enter the ice fog. It is a magical, disorienting phenomenon. The air is filled with millions of microscopic ice prisms floating in suspension. As the rim of the sun finally breaches the horizon, the fog ignites. The air itself seems to sparkle, turning the world into a shimmering corridor of light. Walking through this diamond dust, the mammoths look like phantoms. Their outlines blur and soften. They move with their heads low, their trunks swaying just above the ground. The silence here is profound. The fog dampens all acoustic reflection, making the world feel small and intimate, despite the vastness of the landscape. They are walking toward a wall of blue. Ahead of them, dominating the entire northern horizon, lies the continental glacier. It is not just a feature of the landscape, it is the landscape. It rises thousands of feet into the air, a sheer cliff of ice that stretches east and west forever. It is the physical edge of the habitable world. As the herd draws closer to the glacier, the temperature drops even further, radiating off the ice face like an open freezer door. But the matriarch presses on. She knows that at the base of this great wall, strange things happen. The immense pressure of the ice melts the layers beneath, creating subglacial rivers that burst out from under the cliffs, carrying silt and minerals that fertilize the narrow strip of land at the edge. The scale of the glacier is impossible to comprehend. As the mammoths approach, they, the giants of the animal kingdom, are reduced to the size of ants. The ice face is a tapestry of blues, deep sapphire in the shadows, pale aquamarine where the light hits, and stark, blinding white at the summit. It is scarred with crevasses and fissures, deep wounds in the ice that glow with an ethereal inner light. The herd reaches the moraine, the pile of rubble and rocks pushed forward by the glacier's slow advance. The ground here is uneven, a chaos of granite boulders and frozen mud. They pick their way carefully through the stones. The sound of their footsteps changes from the soft crunch of snow to the hard clatter of rock on rock.
Here, in the shadow of the ice wall, the wind dies completely. The air is stagnant and ancient. It is air that has been trapped in the ice for 10,000 years, only just released. The matriarch finds what she was seeking. Along the base of the ice cliff, where the pressure is greatest, the wind has indeed swept the ground bare. A patch of tough, dry steppe grass, bleached gold by the winter, but still nutritious, lies exposed. The herd spreads out along the base of the cliff. They begin to graze, the rhythmic tearing of grass the only sound in the cathedral of ice. They are dwarfed by the vertical world behind them. Every now and then, a sharp crack echoes from high above, the sound of the glacier shifting, a reminder that the ice is alive, moving, and powerful. While the adults eat, a young male calf wanders away from the group. He is curious, his trunk investigating the texture of the glacier wall itself. He reaches out and touches the ice. It is smooth as glass, cold enough to burn. He pulls his trunk back quickly, Then he notices something deep within the ice. A few feet inside the clear blue wall, suspended perfectly, is a rock the size of his head. It is floating in the frozen river, caught mid-tumble for centuries. He stares at it with a dark, liquid eye, trying to understand this object that is both there and not there. He blows a puff of warm air onto the ice, watching it fog up and then clear again. The matriarch watches him from the corner of her eye. She does not call him back. There is no danger here, only the ice. She feels a deep contentment. The herd is fed, they are together, and the rhythm of their lives is unbroken. The sun climbs higher, but it has no power to melt the wall. The light reflects off the ice, bathing the herd in a cool blue luminosity. It is a surreal underwater feeling. They move slowly along the wall, following the ribbon of grass. As the afternoon wears on, the light begins to change again. The blue of the ice deepens. The shadows of the boulders stretch out, long and distorted. The matriarch pauses. She feels a vibration in her feet, not the footsteps of her herd, and not the cracking of the ice. It is a distant, rhythmic thrumming. She stops chewing. The grass hangs from her mouth. She turns her massive head toward the east, looking down the length of the glacial valley. The other adults sense her tension and stop as well. The silence returns, absolute and heavy. Then, emerging from the distortion of the distance, a shape appears. It is another herd. But these are not mammoths. They are darker, their shapes more humped and angular. It is a herd of bison migrating along the same corridor, seeking the same shelter and food at the edge of the world. The matriarch relaxes. She knows the bison. They are fellow travelers, neighbors in this frozen epic. She turns back to the grass, her trunk tearing up a large tuft with a dusty sound. The cycle continues. The world is large enough for all the giants, here at the foot of the endless ice. The approaching bison herd moves like a dark river flowing over the white earth. As they draw closer, the sheer density of life becomes apparent. There are hundreds of them, a chaotic yet organized mass of horns and wool. They are the engine of the steppe, the grazers that turn the grass into energy, moving constantly to outpace the winter. They pass within 50 yards of the mammoths. The air fills with the sound of their passage, a continuous soft grunting and the clicking of hooves on the frozen stones. The steam from their collective breath creates a low-hanging fog bank that trails behind them. They do not stop. They are on a march to the western valleys, driven by an ancient rhythm. The matriarch watches them go. She stands motionless, a pillar of calm, her trunk resting gently on the ground. A large bull bison, passing on the flank of his herd, pauses for a second. He looks at the mammoth, his dark eye catching the light. There is a moment of stillness, a silent acknowledgement between the two monarchs of the plains. Then, with a toss of his heavy head, he moves on, disappearing into the dust of snow kicked up by his kin.
Once the bison have passed, the silence returns to the foot of the glacier, but it feels different now. The sun has begun its final descent. The angle of the light shifts, and the world undergoes a dramatic transformation. The wall of ice, previously a cool spectrum of blues, begins to catch the fire of the sunset. The summit of the glacier glows with a brilliant burning orange, while the shadows at the base deepen into a rich royal purple. The ice looks less like frozen water and more like a mountain of rose quartz and amethyst. It is a spectacle of color that exists for only a few minutes, a fleeting masterpiece painted by the atmosphere. The temperature begins to drop rapidly. The heat of the day, weak as it was, evaporates into the thin air. The matriarch feels the change in her bones. The ice wall, beautiful as it is, acts as a heat sink, radiating cold. It is time to move away from the cliff, to find a place where the earth retains a memory of warmth. She gives the signal, a low, resonant hum that vibrates the air. The herd responds instantly. They turn their backs on the glowing wall of ice and begin the slow trek south, away from the glacier and back toward the rolling hills of the steppe. They walk into the sunset. The light casts their shadows long and thin before them, stretching out for hundreds of yards across the snow. They look like weary travelers returning home. The pace is slow, almost dreamlike. Their bellies are full, their thirst is quenched, and the exertion of the day is. As they walk, the wind dies down completely. The evening is perfectly still. The only sound is the rhythmic swish crunch of their feet breaking the crust of the snow. It is a hypnotic, repetitive sound, a metronome for the end of the day. They reach a shallow depression in the land, a bowl protected by a ring of ancient, weathered stones. These stones are old, covered in patches of orange and gray lichen that have survived the freeze. The ground inside the ring is clear of the deepest snow, windswept and dry. It is a perfect cradle for the night. The matriarch enters the circle first. She checks the perimeter, her trunk sniffing the air one last time. She smells nothing but the clean, sharp scent of frost and the fading musk of the bison. The world is safe. The world is quiet. She moves to the center of the bowl and begins the process of settling down. It is a slow, heavy unfolding. She lowers her back legs, then her front, the ground trembling slightly as her massive weight connects with the earth. She lets out a long, deep exhale, a sound of release. The tension of leading, of watching, of listening, drains out of her. The others follow her lead. They collapse around her, a mountain range of fur and warmth. The sun finally dips below the horizon. The fiery colors fade from the sky, replaced by the soft velvet blue of twilight. The first stars begin to appear, faint at first, then growing brighter and sharper as the true dark descends. Now there is only stillness. The visual world fades away. The details of the landscape, the glacier, the trees, the river, are swallowed by the gentle darkness. All that remains is the feeling of the herd. The warmth radiating from their bodies creates a bubble of comfort against the chill. The rhythm of their breathing syncs up, a slow, collective rise and fall that mimics the tide of a sleeping ocean. Inhale, and a long, slow exhale. The matriarch closes her eyes. Her consciousness begins to drift. The image of the white plain, the blue ice, and the golden sun dissolves. She floats in the dark, warm space of sleep. The worries of the predator, the storm, and the hunger are gone. There is only this moment. The snow begins to fall again, very lightly. Large, soft flakes drift down from the stars, landing gently on the sleeping giants.
They do not melt. They settle on the thick fur, adding a blanket of white to the blanket of brown. The scene pulls back, rising slowly into the air. We drift upward, leaving the sleeping herd in their circle of stones. They become a small dark shape in the vastness of the white landscape. The wind whispers softly across the plains, a lullaby for a lost world. The Ice Age sleeps, the giants sleep, and the earth turns slowly in the silence, holding them safe in the long, quiet night.